PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
It's Kim versus TC in the battle of the lists.
My list is better.
My list is better.
My list is better.
No, it's not. My list is better.
Kim or TC, who has the better list? From Subject Cinema, this is Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Welcome to another week here on Front Row 5 and 10, brought to you by the good people that bring you Subject Cinema. That would be me and him, the me being Kim Brown.
And the him being TC Kirkham. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back. We've been away for 4
What do you mean,
months.
welcome back? They've been waiting. We've been remiss.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We've been away. We've been sick and everything else. But we've got scheduled stuff and doing stuff now through the end of the year, hopefully.
Yes.
As we take, as Subject Cinema takes the month off, we're going to try and get everything else up on track and be ready to go. Mm-hmm. It is August 1st, 2019.
Yes.
I'm not sure which episode this is.
Me neither.
Because I don't number them that way, but it's like, okay, it's been a fun 4 months. We've actually had this list ready, and we just haven't done it.
Right, that's true.
This was your idea.
It was.
Tell us what we're doing on this week's show. By the way, we'd like you to participate, and we hope you'll send in stuff, because if you send in ideas for lists we can do, you know, whatever it wants to be, TV, movies,
books,
comics,
whatever.
life choices, whatever. If we use your idea, you're going to win a prize. Send it in at subjectcinema@pnrnetworks.com or popcornandroses@yahoo.com. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we do that. We will be here every Thursday for the foreseeable future. Knock on wood.
Yes.
Provided she doesn't get sick again.
Or
anyway,
you don't get sick again.
I only get sick when you give it to me.
Oh, thanks.
Anyway.
Thank you. All right. So this week's top 10, which someone online is very excited about.
We got a comment on SoundCloud about it.
Our top 10, each of our top 10 lists of our favorite Muppet Show episodes.
Can't play the clip. Can't play the clip or we won't get it on Spotify.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Anyway.
This was a show that you and I both adored.
And for some unknown reason, doesn't run anywhere. I don't know why they don't put it back in syndication.
I don't either.
It ran on the Disney Channel for a while. Muppets Tonight was great, too, the sequel in the 90s. It only lasted a couple seasons, but, you know, we've had a lot of fun.
It's extremely difficult to do this list because there's so many episodes that are great for different reasons, whether it's the guest star or like the running theme of the episode or whatever. I tried to go by the guest star.
Yeah, I went by the guest star too, and of course whatever happened in there, because I had to go back and jog my memory, because you have to remember, although we have all the VHS videos are in storage and we never watched them. We subscribed to them, but we never watched them.
Yeah.
But Kim was always like, oh, I don't know. I won't want to ruin my childhood. I don't know. So we never watched them. We haven't bought the DVD set yet. Like, some of the stuff has been cut out.
But we
too.
have watched some of them, and they were hilarious.
Yeah, we watched
always.
clips on YouTube, and you know, it's like.
Yeah.
So,
since it was my idea for a list, you get to go first.
Oh, goody. Top 10 Muppet Show episodes. Well, first of all, I want to say that this is a very hard list to do.
It was.
I mean, I thought, well, should I make a runners-up list? I couldn't. There was 20 plus that that came close, because there's so many that I know probably most of them will be covered on her list, some of them, and because we're completely different in the way we think, I think. We'll have a couple that are similar.
We're going to have some that are similar.
So we'll go through them. Muppet Show ran for 5 seasons from 1976 to 1981, was syndicated around the country, and then it ran in syndication for a few years before getting yanked and then coming back, getting yanked. And so if you want to see it now, you have to watch it. I don't know if it's available on Netflix or Amazon.
I'm not sure.
But it probably will be available on HBO Max. Disney Plus.
I would think so.
I was thinking which new stupid streaming service are they going to have? They'll probably have the entire rights to it on Disney Plus when it premieres in December. So hopefully they will. I hope they bring Muppets Tonight back too. My number 10. I have to admit, this case it was because of the way that it ran throughout the entire show, and I've always liked her anyway. She's a great star. But my number 10 is from season 3. The season finale, as a matter of fact, with Lynn Redgrave as Maid Marian in the Muppet production of Robin Hood. The entire show was centered around Robin Hood, with Kermit doing Robin Hood, and Lynn was supposed to be Maid Marian, Fozzie as Little John, and Scooter as Alan-a-Dale. And they had all kinds of Robin Hood themed stuff in the episode. I always have been a big fan of Lynn's, and she so often, she was known for doing both drama and comedy. Television, she was best known for comedy, but not broad comedy, more subtle stuff. She was on House Calls, she was on Teachers Only, short-lived shows. Here, it was just all over the road, and it was really funny, and I remember it very well when I was a kid. I was a senior or sophomore when that was on originally. It was originally aired May 26, 1979. Okay. Lynn Redgrave, number 10.
Okay. My number 10 is one of my favorite actors who I actually would probably have been terrified to be in a room with, because he was just a truly weird person. My number 10 is Peter Sellers. From season 2, I believe it's episode 19.
Okay.
Peter Sellers was a very strange person. That is like saying...
Let's be honest. No climb strange. He was whimsically eccentric. Like us.
He was effing weird. I'm sorry.
That makes us effing weird, too. I don't want to be effing weird. I want to be whimsically eccentric, like you've always said.
Oh.
All right.
To say that Peter Sellers was a strange person is like saying water is wet and I have a slight crush on Jared Padalecki. His episode...
And Jensen Ackles. And Roman Reigns.
All right. Woman needs, don't judge. But his episode of The Muppet Show just epitomizes the fact that Peter Sellers is now surrounded by a bunch of beings who are stranger than him in the Muppets. And he had to work really hard to keep up. No, actually he didn't. He was just seamless, doing all kinds of crazy things, including he did this whole routine where he is a masseuse giving Link Heartthrob, the egotistical pig, a massage, speaking in a very Dr. Strangelove-esque accent.
Is there a pig on the Muppet Show that isn't egotistical?
Annie Sue was nice.
Okay, fine. But still.
My favorite... Also, this episode does have Kermit the Frog singing Being Green, so that's another plus. The really funny thing about this episode is there's a very famous line that Sellers uses in the episode where Kermit's talking with him backstage, and he's in this outlandish costume that is comprised of like a whole bunch of different things, including a boxing glove, a Viking helmet, and all this other stuff. And he says he's going to be doing an impersonation of Queen Victoria, but he doesn't remember what she looks like. And Kermit says to him, basically says, you don't have to be all crazy and silly, you can just be yourself. Peter gets Kermit to come closer and tells him, but that, you see, my dear Kermit, would be altogether impossible. I could never be myself. You see, There is no me. I do not exist. There used to be a me, but I had it surgically removed. And, of course, Kermit turns to the camera and gives his famous bitch face, and it's just hilarious. I love this episode. It's just complete surreal nuttiness at its best. My number 10, Peter Sellers.
My number 9... excuse me. My number 9 strikes me as one of my favorites because of several factors. One, I'm a big fan of this person, although I'm not... it's weird to say that I'm a fan because I don't listen to her music that much, but I like her. And I like her music when I hear it, but she was one of my mom's favorites. I remember the episode distinctly because they switched locations. Mm-hmm. They were not at the Muppet Theater in this particular episode. They were across the street at the railroad station. Now, of course, a lot of people don't realize the Muppet Show was produced in London. Mm-hmm. They don't realize that they were not produced in Los Angeles. So train stations are normal over there. My number 9, it was from October 21st, 1978, with guest star Loretta Lynn. Loretta Lynn, of course, at the time, was known mostly to country stars. She wouldn't be huge to everyone else until Coal Miner's Daughter came out in 1980, but she was known to people, and she was known to be quite a funny flake in the country music circles. You see her on Hee Haw all the time, and she was being nutty, and so I knew...
And yet, didn't you see her in concert, and you thought she was...
She was deadly boring in concert.
Yeah.
We went to see her, it was the first concert I ever went to. We went to see her at Frontier Ranch in 1974. And she put on a great show, but she didn't talk to the audience much. She just sang. Mm-hmm. And, that was kind of, to me. But, I mean, she's got a great voice, and she's a killer songwriter. But I remember, most notably about this, the final number, which was her song about pregnancy, a song called One's on the Way. And it was a huge hit on the country chart in the mid-70s. And she had little Muppet babies, not of the cartoon, babies,
little
Muppets.
Muppet-looking Muppet
all
babies.
over the set. They were completely
so cute.
repopulated. They were crawling on her ironing board. I just sat and rewatched it because my God, I remember completely losing it watching this. And she... really, you could tell, had a great time doing it. Mm-hmm. It was fun. And I, had all the great spots as always. And it's the Muppet Show, so it's got to be good. I can't think of any episode that wasn't good.
No.
Yeah. Number 9, Loretta Lynn.
My number 8, my number 9, I should say. My number 9 is possibly the only person that could be weirder than Peter Sellers because he was around a bunch of other weirdos all the time as his day job. My number 9 is John Cleese of Monty Python's Flying Circus, Fawlty Towers, too much stuff to mention, we're not worthy. The running thing when he guested on the Muppet Show because when we have the beginning of the show where they always introduce the guest star with Scooter knocking on the door, and be like, oh, whoever, 5 minutes till curtain.
Yep.
John's a little less enthusiastic about being on the show. Because when Scooter comes to tell him that it's time to be, that it's 5 minutes to be on the show, he's bound to a chair and got a gag in his mouth. And Scooter's like, it's no use struggling, Mr. Cleese. You can't leave until you've done the show. It's like, okay, this is going to get crazy. John Cleese is an expert at the kind of slow burn turning into huge explosion, Basil Fawlty meltdown thing that happens. And that happens during this show, and it is truly hilarious. One of the bits that they do is the Star Trek parody.
Pigs in space.
Thank you. So, of course, when you have a Star Trek parody being manned by a group, the crew's made up of a bunch of pigs, of course you have a pirate invasion, because why not? That had to be the strangest sentence I've said all day. And that was one of John's moments, camping it up, hamming it up, and devouring scenery. And you have to be pretty good at that to out-diva Miss Piggy as Long John Silverstein, the pirate that invades the swine trek. My number 9, sheer British madness at its best, John Cleese.
Yeah, I only vaguely remember that. I only saw it once.
The thing is, when I saw it, I hadn't started watching Monty Python yet.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, who's this guy?
For some reason, I had it in my head that was Michael Palin, not John Cleese. But it's like, okay. He never did the show. So
I really was like, who is this dude? Then I found out later on. I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
My number 8 is... for one reason or another, I seem to remember this being an absolutely insane show from beginning to end because of different things that were going on. Everything was running into one another even more than they usually did.
Right.
And the reason for that was probably the guest star. Number 8, Steve Martin. Steve Martin appeared on the October 29th, 1977 edition, second season. And the one thing that I remember most about it is this running gag where Kermit was holding auditions for upcoming Muppet stuff, and one of the auditioners was Mary Louise, who was part of the Whatnots, who's appeared every now and then, and she kept singing with a frog. Every time she'd go out, she'd have a different name: Mary Louise, Terry Louise, Carrie Louise, and every time a hook would pull her off. And later on through the show, we found out it was Kermit pulling her off because nobody else could sing with a frog.
Yeah.
I remember that being funny. Of course, Martin did his usual shtick. He did his balloon animals routine, which was on, I think that was on Let's Get Small, where he had done the stuff there. Did the whole rambling guy, of course. Lots of stuff with sketches. We got to see Statler and Waldorf on the stage for a change. Instead of just up in the box, they and Fozzie traded places as the old guys did the varsity drag. I can't even... I had trouble picturing that, and it's like, okay. Steve is just great, and at the end, if you weren't familiar with his musical talent, which is now pretty much what he's best known for, he was doing banjos with the Jug Band, the All Food Glee Club, the Fazoobs, is that right? Fazoobs?
Yeah. And
the Flying Zucchini Brothers. Martin has won a couple of Grammys for his banjo albums of recent years, and he's also wrote a Broadway show with Paul Simon's wife, Edie Brickell. And I'm like, okay, it's nice to see him early, because he started it with a banjo when he was on the Smothers Brothers show. And here, where he was in his 30s, just really hotter than ever, he was just on point the entire show and had great interactions with Kermit and Fozzie and everybody else. Number 8, Steve Martin.
Yep. My number 8, I know, is going to be on your list somewhere. If it's not, I will be incredibly stunned. Excuse me. My number 8's favorite episode of The Muppet Show is, and I'll admit, it's completely because of the guest star, because she's a wonderful person and a complete role model and just absolutely fantastic, Linda Carter. At the time when this episode aired, which was in February of 1980, television had gone pretty superhero nuts, and so had the big screen a little bit. Granted, not like now.
No, but she was done with Wonder Woman at that point.
Yeah, but she was done. She was still best known for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and she was doing variety specials for CBS and TV movies and everything else. Yeah.
And in fact, that's kind of the running thing throughout the entire episode, is the fact that she is not playing Wonder Woman. She's very happy being Linda Carter, and I'm sure so is every red-blooded American male out there watching the show at that point. The problem is that throughout the show, there are a number of the Muppets that are of the opinion that, well, if Linda can do it, they can do it. And they've been taking courses on how to be a superhero via mail order course. Who here thinks that's going to end well? Show of hands. Yeah, me neither. Linda, of course, is her as usual, glamorous and gracious self, and also does a wonderful performance of Rubber Band Man. And there's also a really cool performance by Floyd, who is the guitar player in the Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem Band. very nice performance of While My Guitar Gently Weeps, which is not a song that I'm all that crazy about. In fact, the only other places besides here that I like that song is in Kubo and the Two Strings. So, I don't know what that says. Funny episode. Linda is just as a charm as always, and just complete silliness, superhero silliness abounds in my number 8 favorite Muppet Show episodes, guest starring Linda Carter.
My number 7 Muppet Show episode, I think it's not really a surprise to people who know me because I've been a big fan of this woman. I was a big fan of hers for most of her life. And she was campy, and she had a lot of classic comedy stuff. She learned from the best, considering where she was best known for. But she was just always hilarious. And this was before, this was after her run of Mel Brooks movies, but before her, unfortunately, one season long sitcom. And it was like, I never knew she could sing really before this. And it was hilarious. My number 7 Muppet Show episode features guest star Madeline Kahn. Mm-hmm. I have been a Madeline Kahn fan all my life. I remember seeing her for the first time in Young Frankenstein when I was 12. And ever since then, I was a huge fan. We lost her to cancer, and she was only 60.
What part did she play in that?
In Young Frankenstein?
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember her name. Sorry.
Never mind, you ruined the joke.
It wasn't Frau Blucher. Yeah, I knew that was coming.
We're nothing if not predictable on this show.
Hey,
you gotta go for the cheap laughs. We work for free.
She's great. Well, we're trying to fix that.
But right now we're struggling artists.
She has a great chemistry with Gene Wilder, but even better chemistry with Peter Boyle in that film. Mm-hmm. And she's, a song and dance woman all the way across. She did several Mel Brooks movies. She did a lot of TV comedies, variety shows and such in the 70s. And later ended up with her own sitcom, Oh, Madeline. It only lasted one season, but it was funny as hell.
Yeah, she was great in Clue.
I love the way that Gonzo is practically, at her feet everywhere she goes in this episode. Gonzo has a mad raging crush on her. Mm-hmm. They also did a lot of great stuff concerning feet, speaking of which. She does a song with Gonzo called The Wishing Song at the end that's really funny and sweet and touching all at the same time. It proves that she can push the heartstrings when she wants to. Of course, it was filled up with a few other things. Swedish Chef trying to cook lobster, which was a riot, and Pigs in Space, and I'm just really frightened. I remember this. I should have replayed this on YouTube because I would have been on the floor. Animal Sings Gershwin, which I remember having an episode over that lasted for 5 minutes at least. Just terrific stuff. Madeline Kahn, the guest star on my number 7 Muppet Show episode.
Okay. My number 7 is actually someone you've already mentioned. So we've already got somebody on here. We weren't sure if we were going to tie or do it. My number 7 is Steve Martin.
Oh, yeah, okay.
The whole thing of this episode is hilarious. At that point...
The audition thing, you mean?
Yeah. The audition thing, the whole thing with the balloon animals, because I hadn't seen any of Martin's stuff. You got to remember, Kim is a little more than 5 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So I was familiar with Steve Martin because he was hot when I was a teenager. She was still a preteen. Yeah. When this was on. So the whole thing about I'm going to do the balloon animals, but I'm not going to blow them up. And then doing the whole thing. I'm sorry, that killed me.
Yeah, it's still funny watching it.
And the whole thing about talking, his whole thing about at another point when he's doing the balloon animals and he's talking while he's blowing up the balloon. So when the balloon pops, it says, "Gosh darn it." And I was like, I just thought that was so funny, considering the fact that I really don't like balloons.
No, I'm not either, but that routine is funny as hell.
Some of the other things that I just want to bring up real quick. This is another way. I do like it because of Steve, but I also like it because of the surrounding story, because it is so different than the usual stuff. And the whole audition thing is just, you have all the auditions, like you mentioned, Carrie Louise and her...
Carrie Louise.
The thing with the frog, we do have to mention that the thing with the frog is that she would sing part of the song, and then the frog would go ribbit at like specific points, and that's all he did.
I'm sorry, I should have brought that up.
He wasn't a talking frog like Kermit. He was actually acting just like a frog.
A frog.
There was also Gonzo, who had his dancing cheese. You trust me, you have to see it to believe it. And a performance. We are treated as an audience to Marvin Suggs and his all-food glee club singing the...
It could have been worse. It could have been Marvin Suggs and his Muppaphones again.
That's the furry...
She hates those.
That's the furry equivalent of Saw.
I think that's a bit much,
it's a bit much, but it's, singing that old standby, Yes, We Have No Bananas. And I don't think there were any bananas now that I think of it. At least not till the end. So my number 7 favorite Muppet Show episode, Steve Martin, that wild and crazy guy.
Yeah, it's Steve Martin.
And he probably wants to brain me now for bringing that up so long after.
No, he's very happy with his past. Number 6, I admit I grew up in the era. You guys know... Most of you know, I'm in my 50s. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and so I remember television variety shows in their heyday. My mother was a huge fan of them when I was a small child, and so I would sit there with her every week and watch, the Andy Williams Show and Hollywood Palace and the Kraft Music Hall and the Dean Martin Comedy Hour and all these shows. And one of the people that popped up continuously on these shows was ended up becoming one of my all-time favorite performers. I just thought she was just dynamite, and I always have. It's just that, she can take anything, music, comedy, drama, anything, and make it her own simply by standing there looking with these big googly eyes and talking like this, because that's how she talked all the time.
I think I know who you're talking about.
My number 6 was The Muppet Show featuring Carol Channing. I adore Carol Channing. I always did. We just lost her in the last couple of years.
I know.
She was a terrific lady.
One of a kind.
And her and Miss Piggy were terrific together. They made sure to have Carol be kind of a mentor figure to Miss Piggy throughout the show. And it was really, Carol was often described as one of the nicest people in show business. If you've never seen Carol Channing, I think it's called Carol Channing Larger Than Life, is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
The documentary from her from about 5 years ago, it is a riot and worth sitting through. Here, she's awesome as always. And I love her duet with Miss Piggy at the end of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, which is the song that Carol's best known for. Of course, we had the Swedish chef trying to cook meatloafers, which were loafers, not meatloaf. And Monster Dance of Your Feet's Too Big, which all played into the feet thing that we were doing at the beginning when Piggy couldn't get her shoes on, and so on and so forth. I have never, ever not liked anything Carol did. And she brought a complete smile to my face when she was on The Muppet Show. Number 6, Carol Channing.
Okay. Number 6 on my list should actually also come as a surprise to absolutely nobody, since I have mentioned on the odd occasion that I possibly, maybe, might have a slight inclination toward people that wear tights, and not just wrestlers. Yes, I have a superhero thing. Deal with it. My number 6 is Christopher Reeve.
I knew that was going to be on your list. I didn't put him on mine because I honestly don't remember that episode at all.
Well,
I don't think I saw it.
That's fine. This is back in the 80s. I was a, young person, quite young. But I remember sitting there in the theater watching, Superman the movie and being like, I'm going to marry that man.
Luke Skywalker will be heartbroken.
I hadn't quite figured that out yet.
We'll hear that a little bit later, I'm sure.
Nobody told me about, certain fanfic out there by that point. Anyway, moving forward.
Not going there.
Moving
anyway.
Forward, His episode of The Muppet Show is hysterical, and it is really, really an important episode. Now, I'm not just saying that because I get to ogle Christopher Reeve for half an hour. It is an important episode because it shows something that Hollywood still has not learned. Handsome man does not equal can't be funny. A handsome man can be funny. He is a riot in this episode. Not just because crazy things are happening around him. He has some really funny lines. Mm-hmm. And his chemistry working off Piggy, who is completely besotted with him. And
there's a shock.
And Kermit has almost got steam coming out of his non-existent ears. Considering the fact
lots of Kermit bitch faces in this one.
Considering the fact that he's usually so annoyed when Piggy throws herself at him, and in this episode she's only got eyes for Chris. It's kind of funny, really.
Yeah. People think of Christopher Reeve as a dramatic actor.
Yes, which he was very good at.
He did a lot of dramas in the 70s. But you want a good look at his comedic side. Watch Noises Off sometime. Mm-hmm. He is a riot in that film.
He is.
Yeah.
There's a part where Piggy's supposed to be singing a song, and she's supposed to be singing it with Rolf the dog playing the piano. She starts to sing, and she deliberately throws her arms out so that her arm catches the thing that the piano cover, and it slams down on Ralph's hand, so he can't play the piano.
Right.
So who's going to play the piano instead? So out comes Chris to play. And she sings East of the Sun and West of the Moon with him and practically mauls him in a way that makes me look subtle. Everything
Piggy does makes you look subtle. That's the kind of character she was.
Everything I learned about flirting, I learned from Miss Piggy.
She's not dead.
I should write a book. Everything I learned from flirting, I learned from Miss Piggy. So my number 6, gone way too soon and still in our hearts, Christopher Reeve.
Yep. My number 5, I'm sure, is coming up on her list somewhere. I'll be surprised if it's not. Again, it's not someone you expect to be funny unless you've been a fan of his characters throughout the years. Because he was able to take serious material and add sardonic wit to it with that heavenly, super awesome voice of his.
Some people might say it was coming from the other place.
From the other place?
Well, not heavenly.
Hell sent?
Not heavenly anyway.
And he had that wonderful way of talking.
Good.
That wonderful speech that he had. And, of course, they went out of their way to make this fit him as the horror meister that he was. Number 5, Vincent Price. Vincent Price, and I know this is the one for sure we matched on.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
We don't normally think of him as a song and dance man, but he does some music here for the first time. Unfortunately, the finale, You Got a Friend, has been cut from the DVDs because they didn't want to pay for the rights to the song. James Taylor wanted too much money. But the rest of it is all intact on DVD if you've not seen it. They go through, there's a House of Horror sketch. The song I've Got You Under My Skin, which I seem to remember making my skin crawl because of the way they did it. They had the ballroom at the dance. The weekly dance was haunted. Wayne and Wanda danced to Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered. Even the talk show and the newsflash they did every week were just run-of-the-mill horror stuff. It was the first season. It was on in 1977, early 1977. And you could tell Vincent was having the time of his life. It was hilarious. And he is so... I mean, if you've ever seen Vincent Price, like I said, I grew up in the 70s, so he was on the talk show circuit all the time. On with Carson and Mike Douglas and all of those guys. And he was so much fun to watch on there because he got to drop those, scary characters he was known for, like the Poe stuff, what he did with Corman and the Dr. Phibes movies in the 70s, and just be himself. And he was funny as hell. And he was funny as hell here. Number 5, Vincent Price.
Okay. Number 5 on my list. Now, we've talked a lot about what we refer to in this house as an episode. An episode is our definition of an episode, and that's with a capital E, by the way, is when something strikes you so funny that you
Can't stop laughing.
Cannot stop laughing.
If you've been listening to our show for as long as it has been on, you have heard both of us have episodes from time to time.
Yes. And certain things that we watch on TV will cause an episode. Always.
Right now, Glove
episode.
and Boots is a big one for that, and Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Definitely.
I'm Peter Graves.
Stop it. This episode, I remember causing an episode a long, long time ago, and if I watch it again today, I'd still probably fall on the floor laughing my head off. My number 5 is one of the first ladies of comedy. Again, we're not worthy, we're not worthy, we're not worthy. Carol Burnett. The Carol Burnett episode of The Muppet Show is completely crazy. And considering,
it's Carol Burnett,
Yeah. Considering this is a show that one of the usual acts was Lou Zealand and his boomerang fish, for me to call this a crazy episode, what makes this episode so nuts is that while Carol is trying to perform, there's a dance marathon going on at the same time during the show, all around her, because Kermit unfortunately let Gonzo take the reins and Gonzo decided to have a dance marathon. So she's trying to act and sing and do everything and actually have to dance while she's doing things. And at one point, her dance partner winds up being Animal. Because of course it does.
Animal still has a thing for Carol Burnett. Occasionally when you see him on other shows, he'll bring her up. It's like, okay.
And you also haven't lived until you've heard Carol Burnett sing the Leif Garrett classic, I Was Made for Dancing.
Yes, that was painful.
Well, Leif did the best he could.
I mean Carol's version. Smart Alec.
I know. And he's sitting there going, you're such a bitch.
Yeah. Anyway. And it's Leif, not Leaf.
Sorry. My number 5, Carol Burnett, one of the funniest women on the planet, and this episode is a scream with a capital S.
It fell into my runners-up. I really loved that, too, but it was so hard. Mainly because as we get closer and closer to the top, you'll see more and more performers I really have always loved.
Right.
Number 4 is no exception. And I first remember seeing this man when I was 4 or 5, when he appeared, I think, on the Mike Douglas show. This is telling you how old I am. That has not been on since the early 1980s. He was, my mother was a fan. Of course, again, my mom has a lot of influence on my early days. Because it was just the two of us for the longest time. And she used to think he was dynamite. Because he was able to be this super serious concert pianist. And just playing impeccably and beautifully when he wasn't falling off his piano stool or dropping the lid of the piano on his fingers or shooting fireworks out of his nose. I mean, the man did everything. My number 4 from the 4th season, episode November 3rd, 1979, Victor Borga. This man, today's generation probably has no idea who he is unless they've run a couple of retrospectives during pledge time on PBS over the last few years. But the man was a comedy genius in addition to being one of the best piano players on the planet. He could, you put him and Liberace, who also did an episode, next to each other. They were friends, actually, if I remember right. They could outplay each other and have a blast. Victor, I remember his entrance. I was just watching it again. They have a stage where he comes up on up the steps to meet, what's the name of the band? The goofy, all baby band. Bobby Benson and the Baby Band, which is a band made up of
Bobby Benson's Bouncing Baby Band, I think
something
it was
like
something
that.
like that, yeah.
And he comes up on stage, comes up the steps, and keeps climbing on top of his piano stool. And then he looks over at the band, and he's like, "This is an orchestra?" He had that wonderful Austrian-German accent. He's from Europe originally. And, of course, proceeds to play and then falls off the stool. And I mean, the man was just... I don't normally like slapstick comedy. I mean, it has to be Yeah, we've talked about this on Subject Cinema. I'm not a huge fan of slapstick, but there are certain times I can take it. I like the Marx Brothers, what I've seen of them. I like some of Charlie Chaplin's stuff, and I love the kind of slapstick goofball humor that Victor Borge does because it's associated with music. And yet he can play. I mean, the man was a concert pianist in real life before he got into comedy. He's absolutely fantastic here. They teamed him up with all the different musical acts, not just the baby band, but also Rolf playing Hungarian Rhapsody with him. They did trying to play the Blue Danube, but it got screwed up by various things.
Which would have happened anyway, even if it wasn't
Right.
the Muppet Show. I can't think of one song Mr. Borge did through that actually went from beginning to end without a hitch.
That's the way
Which
he
was
worked.
his shtick.
And he was funny as heck. Number 4, Victor Borge.
Okay. Number 4 on my list is quite high on my list, and I think when I say who it is, people are going to be like, what? But if you listen to what the episode is about, you'll know why. My number 4 is Brooke Shields.
What?
Thank you. The reason that Brooke Shields, who was a very...
Yeah, really? Okay.
No, hold up. There's
Again, I don't remember that
There's
one, so
a
I couldn't
reason.
pick it.
There's
Yeah.
a reason. Brooke Shields, of course, at the time was famous for starring in The Blue Lagoon and being this very young, talented actress and all that. And she's still a drop-dead gorgeous lady and a fantastic actress to boot. The reason this is so high on my list, while Brooke is a lovely person, is not because of Brooke. It's because of the framing story and actually the whole story that runs through it. The Muppet Show presents Alice in Wonderland. At least,
Yeah, I should have figured that was going to play into it.
At least that's the general idea.
Well, it's like Robin Hood.
Yeah.
That didn't work well either.
Well, considering that Fozzie thinks he's supposed to play the Tin Woodsman.
I don't remember this at all, so you have to...
It's complete... Yeah. It's... If you've read Alice in Wonderland, which is one of my favorite all-time books of all time, Lewis Carroll wrote an amazing story which is just chock full of illogic and lunacy, so that fits in perfectly on this show. Of course, Piggy wants to play Alice, but finally settles on playing the Queen of Hearts because Brooke is playing Alice because, duh, she's the guest star.
And Piggy's more suited to the Queen of Hearts, actually, because she can yell,
"Off with their heads!" Yep. As I mentioned, Fozzie thinks he's playing the Tin Woodsman. By the end of the episode, they're singing "We're Off to See the Wizard" during the Mad Tea Party. I guess it's a very early example of a mashup. Isn't that what you kids call it nowadays?
Oh, that was mean. Okay.
That actually hurt. That hurt to say that. It's a really funny episode, just sheer silliness and goofiness and wonderfulness. My one quibble is that her dress as Alice is yellow, not blue. I'm assuming but she's got the white pinafore and the whole thing. I'm assuming they made it a different color than blue because they were worried Disney would get pissed.
Right.
Disney, if you...
Now they don't have to worry about it.
Disney,
they're owned
if
by
you
Disney.
bring this episode back on Disney Plus and colorize it the wrong color, you will have a very pissed off fan in Massachusetts, so don't do it.
What, so you don't want them to colorize it blue?
No, I don't want him... No, colorization sucks.
Right, okay, good.
It's a complete...
We got that right, okay.
It's a complete waste of time. So my number 4, Brooke Shields.
Number 3 on my list, everybody who knows me knows that this would be on near the top of my list because I adore this woman. She was just one of the best ever. And when it came to, I really, when I talked about Madeline Kahn earlier, this woman outdoes Madeline Kahn by maybe 3 times. And she was just... I don't care what she did over the course of her unfortunately way too short life. She was a comedy genius. She could sing. She could act. She could act seriously too. But she was most adept at doing characters, and it's because she'd grown up doing them. She pretty much played a kid version of herself in a regular running sketch when she was on Saturday Night Live. My number 3, the incomparable Gilda Radner. I adore Gilda Radner in anything, and in this particular one, There's stuff at the beginning of the show, but near the end of the show, everything kind of goes crazy because Dr. Bunsen Honeydew comes up with this Muppet Labs super adhesive. Unfortunately, it has a mind of its own and starts taking over the entire show, getting stuck. Everybody's getting stuck on everybody else. So when Gilda comes out to do her tap dancing number at the end of the show, she's got her left hand stuck to her head, one of her shoes stuck in her hand, stuck under her arm. She stuck the beaker at some point.
Isn't her other foot? Her shoe is stuck to a piece of stage.
I don't know, but she can at least do something with it.
Yeah, she can do something with that.
And it is fall down hilarious. Gilda, who we lost, I think, at 42. She was not very old when she passed of ovarian cancer in 1989 or 1990. Was just brilliant all the way through. And she was used to this kind of comedy because it's pretty much what she had been doing for the last 3 years at that point on Saturday Night Live. This was from 1978. And she was just one of the true comedy geniuses of all time. I mean, Fred Silverman tried to talk her into leaving Saturday Night Live and give her own variety show in prime time, and she wouldn't do it. Especially after the success of Gilda Live in New York, which you've never seen it. It is available on video, and there's also an album of that that's great. It's a riot. And she was terrific here. I mean, she had great chemistry with Piggy. She was funny as hell with Gonzo and with Kermit. And of course, we have Marvin Suggs and his Muppaphones in this episode, playing Witch Doctor. And I don't remember, I think this is the only time I ever remember seeing Uncle Deadly in the entire show. I didn't remember him when the Muppets premiered very well.
Oh, I did.
And so I'm like, okay.
He's in the Vincent Price episode. For
is he? Oh, yeah, he probably is. I always thought it's just, I love Gilda. And so this had to be near the top of my list. Number 3, Gilda Radner.
Okay. Number 3, now the top 3, oh gosh, I agonized over this. I have too. I really agonized over the top 3. Number 3 on my list I think this was probably the first place I ever saw him. And the first time I saw him, it was like a
light bulb went off in Kim's head. Bling!
No, more like a jack-o'-lantern flared the light in Kim's heart. I went, I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to do what that guy's doing.
This is one of my runners-up, too.
I want to be outrageous and crazy and go out there and do whatever I want and be an absolute nutball, and I want people to love me for it.
Does that mean you'd be playing golf 24/7 now?
Yeah, that's the only reason I can. My number 3, Alice Cooper. Sorry, got to do it again. We're not worthy. We're not worthy. We're not worthy.
Yeah. This was hard. I couldn't. I almost
watching Alice Cooper perform "Welcome to My Nightmare." I literally remember sitting there, and my eyes were so wide, and I was still. I did not.
So you were doing your Carol Channing impression.
Budge. I was just sitting there, like
watching the screen. Okay.
I was just like, what is this, and where can I get more of it? I was just I was mesmerized. I'd never seen anybody like Alice before, and I was like, more, now, please, more. The part that just really sealed the deal for me, and of course that's the funny thing, is that's the whole point of the episode. Alice keeps trying to get people to sign away their souls to his boss.
Gee.
I'm like, oh, I bet
there's a shock.
I look back on that now, I'm like, man, I bet that played well in Kansas. There's a part where Fozzie's lamenting all the creepiness going on and all the weird monsters and things even more than usual, and how he wants one nice thing on the show. So Kermit's little nephew Robin sings "Over the Rainbow," and it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. It's one sweet moment in a very creepy show, but it's so wonderful and lovely. The part that just completely, I was like, that's it, I want to be this guy, is when at one point Alice is in his dressing room and he is berated by the moral guardian of the Muppet Show, Sam the Eagle, who is as pretty much right-wing as you could possibly get. Well, he would be right-wing. He's an eagle. But ching. And Sam berates him for being, quote, demented, sick, degenerate, barbaric, naughty freako, end quote.
Yeah, that sounds like
Alice looks at him and gets a big smile on his face and goes, thank you. And I was like, yes. Oh my gosh, I know what I want to do with my life now.
Yep.
My number 3, Alice Cooper. Keep being weird, dude. You're the best.
My number 2, I don't really need to talk about much because you've already brought it up. Linda Carter. No, Linda Carter was awesome on this show, and that gorgeous blue dress she had on was really stunning, too. I do, with you, I think the best... excuse me. I think the best instrumental interlude in the entire run of the show was Floyd's While My Guitar Gently Weeps on this show. He was just, it was really well done. And, I mean, they had a little bit of, they did have a little bit of vocal in the background, didn't they? Just like a humming or something.
I'm trying to remember. And he's all alone. He's on a stairwell playing.
I know that.
Yeah.
And of course you've got everybody trying to be superheroes, and Linda just not putting up with it, which was freaking hilarious.
But she's not mean about it.
No, she's just trying to be. Why don't you want to be yourself? That's the best part you can be.
That and they're really terrible at it.
Yeah.
But she won't tell them that because she's far too much of a lady.
Well, Piggy looked pretty good in that sort of ersatz
Wonder
Woman
Pig?
costume.
Yeah, that was fantastic. But everybody else was just... I mean, the Legion of Substitute Heroes is better at being a hero than this bunch. Comic nerd moment. Whoop, whoop.
It was a fun thing. Linda... A lot of people, I don't think even today's generation who know her best probably... other than Wonder Woman, from her short and funny appearance in Sky High, the Disney movie from 2005. And maybe one of the 2 shows she did in syndication in the late 90s.
Or if they're watching MeTV now.
Yeah, well, Wonder Woman again.
Yeah.
She's a dynamite singer. If you've never heard about it, she had an album out when Wonder Woman was on. Now she's back. She's had a couple of new albums in the last few years that are standards that are just mind-blowingly good. And she did a whole series of variety specials for CBS, both during and after Wonder Woman ended. She has it all, and she's always great. My number 2, Linda Carter.
Okay. Number 2 is someone that you've already mentioned, and at the risk of repeating myself, this is also someone who has had an enormous impact on my life. One of the very few people that I would actually get down on my knees and do the whole we're not worthy, or I would just sit at his feet and listen to him talk.
You might want to call him a thriller, huh?
Yeah. Or Abominable. He'd probably like either one of those accolades. My number 2, the late, great Vincent Price. Oh gosh, what can you say about Vincent? He was just so funny, and obviously has absolutely no problem with, taking the mick out of his own horror career, because everything he's doing in this episode is just silly and weird and funny. And
he didn't start off as a horror person anyway. That just kind of transitioned and it exploded.
He was a very well-respected actor, and then the horror stuff started, and people went, hey, that guy's really good at scaring the piss out of people.
And even when he did horror stuff, he was still doing straight roles like the Bat.
Yeah.
So it was
and
fun.
he just had that voice.
Oh, yes.
That he could just talk to you and talk you into anything. You could definitely, if you said, just come over here and sit down, never mind those chains, that's fine. You do it.
Yeah.
There's this whole part... Uncle Deadly is in this episode because there's this whole bit where Fozzie and Gonzo rent a summer cottage, and it's this big scary castle. And as it turns out, there's this hideous monster that lives in this castle with his beautiful assistant, and they think that Uncle Deadly's the monster. He's like, what do you mean? I'm the beautiful assistant.
Yeah.
And it's just... And at the stroke of midnight, his master turns into Guy Lombardo.
Uh-huh.
You had to be there.
Yeah.
Who? Yeah, I know.
Our audience is going, who?
Yeah. The whole You Got a Friend thing is really funny.
And it's a shame you can't see it if it's on DVD.
No, and it also sucks that, if you get the DVDs, I think, and also the tapes and the DVDs, I'm pretty sure, had the bits that played in England that didn't play in America.
Yes, they do.
And
that was only for the first season, though, by the way.
That's one of the ones that those appear in, including a song called I'm Looking Through You, which is...
This is later on, too. Okay.
A song called I'm Looking Through You, which is done by a trio of ghosts, which is Shouldn't it be We're Looking Through You? But whatever. My number 2 person, just complete fantastic individual, Vincent Price. Yes, I had to suck that last joke out.
My number 1 was never in question. When we first talked about this, when she first sprung it on me at the end of our last show 4 months ago, immediately this sprung to number 1 on my list. It's the only one that does that. I was sitting here a little while ago watching some of the clips from this episode on YouTube and convulsing again. I don't know why, because nobody knew who they were. In America, nobody knew who they were when they appeared.
Nope.
I didn't know who they were when they appeared. All I knew is that they were unique, different, and hilarious, and they fit with the Muppet vibe so perfectly. It was scary, and they did it all without saying a word. Before Tapeface, before Blue Man Group, there was Mummenschanz. They were brilliant on this episode. It was from the first season. Aired. It was the season finale, May 21st, 1977. Mummenschanz was a trio of mimes from, I believe they were from Germany, and they were hilarious. I mean, the thing at the end with the clay masks, I was on the floor for at least 15 minutes, just freaking dying. I was in here laughing for a good solid 5 minutes just a little bit ago, watching it again. I know you said you were freaked out by them.
I was at first. I was like, "What is this? What are they doing? Oh my gosh, they're pulling their faces off! What the heck?" But I got into it.
You won't go into the whole got your nose thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, these guys were
What was it with the 70s and mimes? It was really a thing.
Oh, yeah, I know. Shields
70s.
and Yarnell also appeared on the show.
Really?
Later in the season.
Disco, Bigfoot, and mimes. That's the 70s
4,
pretty
I think.
much.
But Mummenschanz just... They were all in black, and they were wearing masks most of the time. They did take them off at the end of the show, so you could see their faces.
And they still didn't say anything.
No, they still didn't. Well, they're mimes. They're not. That ruins the illusion.
Well, yeah.
You have a lot of people now that are really hooked on some mimes that have done really well out there. The Blue Man Group thing is syndicated all over the world. We have it here in Boston. We've still never been. And if you haven't seen Tapeface yet, you don't know what you're missing. The guy is hilarious. We got to go see him again we missed him this time when he came around, but we was there for the first time. It was a riot live. He's funny as hell. And this show was fun. They did a sketch where they had notepads on their face and they were writing on each other and drawing stuff. But the clay mask thing at the end, which only featured 2 of them, is a freaking riot. One of them is building this perfect face, and the other one can't get it in place, so he just kind of throws the clay onto his face in different... And you have to see it.
It tells a story.
Yeah.
It tells a very complete story.
You look it up online because it is freaking hilarious. Especially when they start noticing each other and start taking it out on each other, which is really funny. I also like the fact that they taught Kermit how to communicate without talking. Which was really funny. Now, like I said, I think this is the only place I have ever seen them. Ever.
Yep.
And I just thought they were a riot. And if you haven't seen it, look up their stuff online. YouTube has the Clay Faces thing, and it has some of the other stuff, too. Because they're just a riot. Number 1 favorite Muppet Show episode of all time, Mummenschanz.
Okay. Number 1 for me... I'm not even going to go into an intro with this. My number 1 is the Stars of Star Wars.
I'm sorry. I was never a big fan of that episode. I know you would be.
You're entitled to your opinion.
I'm not saying it's bad. I was not into Star Wars at the time.
I
didn't get into Star Wars till after they started running it on HBO in 1983. So. Go ahead.
I'm not. No, I'm just.
No, I mean, go ahead with what you're saying.
Yeah. It's not my fault you came into it too late.
I did.
Anyway, this episode was from 1980, so I was still quite young, little doe-eyed innocent.
11.
Yeah. But, just
That's still, yeah.
doe-eyed innocent, teetering on the cusp of womanhood.
She's an anime girl.
And I sat there through this episode with a smile on my face that sandblasting couldn't get off. Because I was crazy in love with Luke Skywalker, and by an extension, Mark Hamill, who also appears in this episode.
As himself.
He's Luke's cousin. Ow. Some Patty Duke vibes happening here.
Cousins.
Shut up. Cousins. Shut up. Because Luke, Chewie, played by the late, great Peter Mayhew, Anthony Daniels as C-3PO, and Kenny Baker, I believe, as R2-D2, all crash on the Muppet Show set, and it's just complete lunacy from there, with, once again, Piggy flinging her...
I thought you said the stars of the Star Wars. I sense there's 2 people missing.
Well, yeah. That's true.
Because then because they had to be missing the chick, because then Piggy wouldn't be able to do the hairdo.
No, I know. Considering the fact that Piggy is dressed as Leia and flinging herself at Luke because Return of the Jedi hadn't come out yet, and we hadn't got that little plot wrinkle that
Empire hadn't come out yet. It was still a month away from when it aired. So
we hadn't got that little plot wrinkle from Jedi that burned a whole bunch of fic before it even got written. The really funny, truly ironic, and kind of chilling thing is at the end of the episode when everyone gets together and sings "When You Wish Upon a Star." Mm-hmm. Isn't that ironic? Don't you think?
Uh-huh.
It's just, this episode encapsulates my childhood, and it's this show for me, and it's just wonderful and lovely, and you could tell everybody was having a blast. And Mark Hamill...
Unlike the Star Wars Holiday Special.
Oh! You son of a bitch.
Happy Life Day, everybody. Anyway...
I am going to bite you.
Hey, it's not like I'm talking about shock treatment, okay? Okay, go.
Should I start with the Karen Carpenter jokes now, or would you like to...
Now that's not fair. That's not fair. She's not here to defend herself.
We can watch Superstar again if you want to.
Oh, you're a bitch. All right. Carpenter's fans hate mail goes to PlatinumRoseL@yahoo.com.
You're right. I shouldn't have done that. I'm sorry. Okay. That was... bad me, no cookie. I just couldn't think of anything else off the top of my head. I'm sorry. But my number 1 favorite Muppet Show episode, The Stars of Star Wars.
All right, let's recap. My top 10 Muppet Show episode guest stars. We'll do it that way. Mm-hmm. Number 10, Lynn Redgrave. Number 9, Loretta Lynn. Number 8, Steve Martin. Number 7, Madeline Kahn. Number 6, Carol Channing. Number 5, Vincent Price. Number 4, Victor Borga. Number 3, Gilda Radner. Number 2, Linda Carter. And number 1, Mummenschanz.
Okay. And my list, number 10, Peter Sellers. Number 9, John Cleese. Number 8, Linda Carter. Number 7, Steve Martin. Number 6, Christopher Reeve. Number 5, Carol Burnett. Number 4, Brooke Shields. Number 3, Alice Cooper. Number 2, Vincent Price. And number 1, The Stars of Star Wars.
We actually matched on 3, which is way more than I thought we would.
I know, that's awesome.
And I didn't bring up the rubber band things with Linda Carter because that was funny as heck too, but it's like she already talked about it. Okay, so Front Row 5 and 10 is back. We're going to be back for the next several months. We want you to send in your list. If you send them in, you could win a prize. Mm-hmm. You never know what it's going to be, but we're going to do that, and we hope that you will do so. You can email us with your ideas at frontrow@PNRNetworks.com, subject cinema at PNRNetworks.com, or popcornandroses@yahoo.com. Popcorn, letter, and roses.
Yep.
And so, because I'm not sure that our other addresses work on those. I've checked them, and they seem to be, but I also got some backlash saying something bounced, so I want to make sure. We hope you'll listen to our other shows as we are. Subject Cinema is off right now. Platinum Rose's Garden is off right now, but we are doing our other shows, so you can check out over at PNRNetworks.com, get the whole lineup, and don't forget to check eCinemaOne, eCinemaBoston, and all that stuff for all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And Kim, on her summer shows, right now, doing a lot of stuff with Ring Around the Rosie, because the summertime is wrestling. She can watch and have time to relax and enjoy it, and so ringaroundtherosie.net. We also have the other shows and stuff, too. Now, next time, when we reconvene next week, I swear it will be next week. We have watched all these different countdowns on YouTube over the years. from Watch Mojo and Looper and, What Culture. All these different sites that we like. And I've been thinking about all the different stuff we watched, and some of the ones that we both found really kind of funny and disgusting at the same time. So here is what we're going to do. On our next episode of Front Row 5 and 10, we are going to name our top 10 most revolting snack foods ever made.
Do we have to have eaten them?
No.
Just
These are more likely stuff that we would not put anywhere near our mouths.
Okay.
Because we've seen so many different things, a lot of it from Japan, that it's really like...
We're not picking on you,
No,
Japan.
we're not. Japan has a
You're
unique
lovely
taste and they're
country.
unique people, but I'm sorry. I am sorry. Squid-flavored Pepsi? No. Ew. It's just like, yuck. So our top 10 most revolting snack foods ever. We can throw drinks in if you want to.
Well, they would qualify as snack foods because they're not like,
You're not eating them, you're
the only
drinking
thing you really need drink-wise is water. I mean, everything else is pretty much,
Oh, that's true. So this should be fun because we've seen a lot of crap on those things.
Now, these have to be professionally made things, right? Not just somebody that
These
came
are
up with
stuff that
weird,
like you could like say you come up with a product like Pepsi, like I said, Pepsi Squid flavor, or a McDonald's Royale. That's not really gross, but
no, but I get what you mean.
Yeah,
like,
an
like
honest
the
to goodness brand name that's been in stores,
like the McPizza
somewhere
or something.
Yeah, that's been in stores somewhere.
Okay. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Don't eat before this show because
Yeah,
we're gonna warn you right now, so that way you don't write to us and be like, "I got sick." It's not our fault.
Well, we warned you. And on that note,
oh, not that note.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm Kim Brown.
I'm TC Kirkham,
and we hope that you will be back next week, and we count on you coming back to count up another list with us here on Front Row 5 and 10.
Count on it. See you next week.
Bye.
You've been listening to Front Row 5 and 10 with Kim Brown and TC Kirkham.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.
PNR.